wherever or whenever. It's Big Victories.
You could bet it all on me. Anything that I do it B-I-G. Shot callers, so they call on me. If my dogs don't eat, then they fall on me. It's the ice on the wrist for me. I'm living life like it's meant to be. Lived everyday shit, everything big. Big crib, big bands, nigga, it's a big victory.
Welcome into another edition of the Big Vic Podcast. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Vic. Big Vic. What's going on, buddy? How's your week?
Man, I'm just looking sexy every day, man. I lost some weight. I'm still waiting for you to talk about it, but you see the shirt, you know what I mean? It's hanging off of me.
Congratulations. It's that time of the year. You got to get your bikini body ready.
I don't know.
Right? Beach time. You live in Miami. So you got to be down on the beach.
Yeah.
Right? Not
Grant,
like me.
Stop laughing, Grant.
Not like me, pasty white Canadian.
No,
So,
but you're in shape, though. I got to give you that, man.
like the driven snow. That's the way that I look at it, right? That's my goal. You put me next to a snowbank and I will disappear.
You would disappear?
That's how it goes. Okay, introduce our guest today.
Today, actually, we have a guy. Actually,
We know him.
We know him. We really know him.
But we know him differently.
Yeah, we know him differently, but there's a side to this guy. This gentleman is really appealing to the community. Not just in the community, but in the world, period. There's some of the accolade he has achieved, and he's a local boy. Let me introduce Mr. Grant Stern. How you doing this
Hey,
morning?
Vic. Hey, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Grant, good to see you. And just as an aside, we know Grant because Grant also helps out with the podcast. So
He actually owned the podcast studio.
yeah, so he's someone that we're familiar with, and obviously finding out, about the other things that, the community aspect of kind of what he does. He helps us out with the podcast, but that community aspect of it, his role in the community and his role in the political world in general is something that we've wanted to talk to him about.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk to him about it. And then, you know me, I got to sneak in. Can we get a discount since we have you on the show too?
I think that I have to charge you my booking fee now. I'll tell my agent to call you.
Oh, God. But anyway, Grant, tell the people who you really are besides just being a guy from Miami, did these marvelous things, and, the floor is yours. Explain to them who you are, because I got some things I want to talk to you about.
This is going to be tough because the first thing I was going to say is I'm a Miami boy.
Yeah, I stole that thunder.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's making it really easy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm actually one of the few people really from Miami, born here, educated here, left and came back after college and stuff. And, I started off by working for .com companies, and then I eventually started doing websites, and I got into the mortgage biz and did that for a long time. And then I realized that I could be a little more involved in the community. And so about 10, 12 years ago, I started doing more nonprofit stuff. And one thing led to another. And, I started writing a lot. And then I kind of kicked Walmart out of town, which is pretty cool.
What do you mean by kicking Walmart out of town?
And what town?
Our town, Midtown, actually.
Midtown Miami.
Midtown Miami, just
Okay.
5 blocks away from you guys. It's a long story because it took 8 years, but in a nutshell, they wanted to come here and they gave up a few years ago because I don't think they had the resources to beat me, honestly. So it's
When you say beat you,
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us about that fight, because obviously Midtown Miami is a place that it's very. What would you say? I mean, it's apartments, condominiums, things like that. It's not necessarily residential as in traditional residential housing, but obviously having businesses like Target and whatnot down in this area are good for the citizenry. So how did the Walmart fight go, and why was Walmart not someone you wanted to have down here?
Walmart announced that they were going to come here in 2011. They didn't actually announce. I think it was some passive aggressive corporate stuff because the mall company said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna have a mall there, a Walmart there," and everybody started freaking out. And it spurred me into action because there was this book that I just read called "The Walmart Effect" about how not cool a neighbor Walmart can be in your neighborhood, And I was just like, I want to do something about this, and so I started writing because the Miami Herald had asked me to write an op-ed about real estate stuff maybe a year earlier or something. And so I was like, well, I'm going to write an op-ed and ask the Miami Herald to publish it. Why not? Right. It seems like so easy, but it took me 2 months of bothering them to get them to publish the story. And then after that, my friends were like, Grant, this is a great idea. You should do like a change.org petition or something. And I was like, that's an even better idea. Right. And so I wrote up a petition. I said, we should boycott Walmart until they say that they're not going to move to Midtown anymore. That's the best I could think of. I mean, 350 people boycotting Walmart, I don't think changed their perspective in Bentonville, Arkansas too much. But all of a sudden, it started generating a lot of publicity. Of all places, I was invited to go on Fox and Friends on a Saturday morning.
So you was on Fox and Friends?
Yeah. It was before anybody thought anything too crazy about Fox. I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, Allison Kummer, now she's on CNN. So, and yeah, like the petition, and then everything like culminated, like really became big, like just a couple months after that, because I got word from somebody that the city of Miami was helping Walmart cheat to get their project approved without even applying.
Not the city of Miami.
Which is shocking because the city of Miami is such a pillar of legality
honest, you know what I mean?
American cities.
Not the Banana Republic.
Oh, yeah, the city of Miami. And so the city planning director called a meeting that nobody knew about, or called an item to a meeting nobody knew about. And I got tipped off, and I wrote to my 300 people, and I said, guys, or maybe it was 700 at the time or something. It wasn't like the biggest, but it was, it was good. It was 300-400 people. I said, guys, we have a meeting at City Hall in 3 days at this time, and I need as many of you as possible to show up. But not just that, I need you guys to tell your friends, share this petition everywhere, email it to your friends. Let's show them that we really care. 3 days later, 300 people showed up at the meeting.
Wow.
And there were over 3,000 people on the petition. And the board unbelievably said, oh, yeah, like we'll just continue the item. 300 people got up, left, and walked out. And they said, if those people were here to talk about this, we should have done something. And I'm like, no kidding, guys. So then we had to have another meeting 2 weeks later, and 300 people showed up again.
Wow.
And the board voted, and they voted 9-0 against these guys.
Against Walmart.
Against Walmart. And that was the first big milestone. That was only 7 or 8 months into the affair. I'm going to spare you all the details, but it took 8 years total until they decided to throw in the towel and leave.
What made you actually started the whole petition, not wanting Walmart? A lot of people don't understand, us actually living around Midtown, Wynwood area, they don't understand the traffic hours. And what would Walmart plan that take you off to actually not want them in the community?
Well, the first thing that I saw about where they were planning to put it is that it would have been right at the gateway between Midtown and Wynwood, and right in the middle of the whole combined area. And I moved into Wynwood 20 years ago when nobody was here. Actually, 21 years ago now. And so I know what the area is like. I know what traffic can support. And I read this book, right? And the book said that Walmart loves to stick itself into the worst traffic areas possible because they figure people give up and go to Walmart, I guess.
Damn.
But it's like they want a lot of traffic because, like, how the shopping mall, you got a lot of people walking around, and that's what makes the foot traffic that the stores want. Well, like Walmart is its own shopping mall, so they want to get a lot of car traffic, and they figure if there's a lot of car traffic already, then people will see it, and so they look for areas that have, like that are already traffic heavy, and then try to locate there and all this other stuff. They call it the retail science.
I can't imagine having a Walmart in this particular area. I mean, I'm
5 blocks from your standing.
I mean, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, so I drive in and have to deal with the traffic in this area. And when we're done this podcast, at the time of day that it's done, you're just hitting the end of school, beginning of rush hour, and depending on, depends on how people are feeling that particular day. You can have a great easy drive to get on the 95 and risk your life on that, or it can take you upwards of 45 minutes to get somewhere that literally should take you about 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes to do at
Yeah.
best. So I can't imagine what a Walmart dropped into the middle of that would do to the traffic. That would be an absolute nightmare.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's, and the worst part is when they proposed this, it was 10 years ago now. And when they proposed this, the neighborhood wasn't as mature as it is right now, as far as like, all this development that's come in, more people that live here today than back then. But even back then, at rush hour, you would have a backup to get onto the highway that went to the traffic light at the corner where Walmart wanted to be.
Wow.
So I was like, man, if you can't even drive around here right now, just imagine adding. And the thing is, Midtown's this huge development. They've actually added 3 new buildings, 3 new high rises in the last 5 years there. It was designed to have like a zillion high rises, be very dense. And I'm like, how in the world would somebody want to live across the street from Walmart?
Well,
And even if they did, like, then how much traffic are you going to have? Like when you add 4,000 apartments to this site plus a Walmart, I was just like, this is going to be crazy.
well, when you
This
look
is
at
gonna force people out of the neighborhood.
when you look at that Wynwood area right now, where there's that little strip mall across from the park, right down by, there's a Target in there, right? There's a Target. That's Northeast
Yeah,
Second.
that's the Midtown Mall, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, but Grant, you had 300 people. You had people that were against it, but obviously there had to be people that were for it. I mean, what kind of pushback did you get for your opposition?
So, there were only a few people that were for it, and most of them were either paid by Walmart or just paid by Walmart's lobbyists. There are a few people who are like, oh, I want those low prices. I'd like that to be closer. And I'd go to them, I'd be like, okay, so you live X. Now it takes you 10 minutes to get to this Walmart, and it takes you 15 minutes to get to this Walmart. So you really need to save 5 minutes to get to your Walmart, and that was one issue. One guy that I spoke with, actually, he was like, no, I want Walmart in my neighborhood. That was Frank Rollison. He went on Fox. They called him out on Fox, and he was a city manager for the city of Miami. He lives in the Upper East Side of Miami, and he was like, yeah, I want it up there. And I was like, that's not a bad idea, because if you put it on Biscayne Boulevard and 79th Street, you're at the intersection of 2 highways. It's not like in Midtown where they wanted to put it, where you're just on these normal city streets and it's difficult to get to stuff, And the worst part is, I want you to think about this, like just coming off of Miami Beach to get to that area, there's no like direct ramp. You have to get off many blocks away and cut through all this crazy traffic. The Miami was not designed to be a high traffic flow city.
Jim, you know what's going through my head right now? These things be bouncing on my head. If I walk in Walmart right now, where I see Grant pitch on the wall, don't let don't let him in.
Well, no, yeah, and I mean, for people that might be watching this, that just to give context, because you may not be familiar with Miami, but if you do any kind of, if you just Google Miami traffic, it's an absolute nightmare. And then if you drop something like a retail outlet like a Walmart into that, like when I lived in Miami, getting from where I was to the beach was 45 minutes on a good day.
That's crazy.
And that's something that, credit to Fort Lauderdale, 10 minutes from the beach, pretty much no matter where you are, because of the way that city's designed. But Grant, to your point, Miami is not designed as a smooth traffic flow city. It never has been. And how, I don't even know how you would go about trying to fix that, given the growth that's occurred in this area since the pandemic, because we've had all of the people that were up east and up north.
This was all before the pandemic. It was bad traffic. And,
right.
And the thing is, the pandemic fixed Miami's traffic for a year and a half. We were all like, oh, the traffic's so good now.
Everybody stayed
home. Because everybody was staying home. Yeah, now that everybody's back out.
And now it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like rush hour traffic starts at 3 o'clock. But like here's the thing though. The article that I wrote said, if Walmart does everything by the book, there is nothing we can do to stop them. Right? Because I'd spoken with the city's zoning department, and that's what they told me, that the zoning there is special to help developers cram in those big boxes. It's the only place in the city you're allowed to do it this way too. It's got the most special permission in a big city where you're allowed to put this big box in. Nowhere else, right? Everything else is difficult. And so, I mean, imagine I wrote an article, put it in the Herald, and said, nothing we can do to stop these guys if they don't cheat.
So they cheated.
Like motherfuckers.
Whoa,
And,
whoa.
Whoa! They cheated.
And
No.
yeah, and so you know, that was really disappointing because I
What did
figured,
they do to cheat? What was that call, that moment that you called him and said, I got him? What was it?
oh well, I mean, the moment that I said I got them was they were cheating for every minute of the whole time.
Damn.
I was like, they're just cheating. I
So
mean,
there
it's
was
just, they were like, the more we cheat, that we're going to cheat so much that you can't actually enforce everything we're going to cheat on.
Okay.
That was their strategy, which is really crazy when you think about it. But then after 4 years of seeing what people in DC have done, cheating constantly seems like the better option, doesn't it? And that's what they did.
This is what I want to get into. The Walmart situation is good, but Grant is really deeper than that. If people are into politics, there's a lot of some of the biggest websites in the world, in the country, are being run by an individual who we have on the podcast today. I don't know if he's gonna reveal everything, but one of the biggest cases, I know, 2 years ago, there was a gentleman you had on your podcast. Would you mind telling the story, Lev, about Lev and DeSantis and Mr. Trump?
Yeah, sure. So actually, right where you guys are sitting, I conducted an interview on my Dworkin Report podcast, which I'm a producer and occasional talent on, dworkinreport.com, DWORKIN. So I conducted an interview with Scott, myself, and Lev Parnas. Lev Parnas blew the whistle on Donald Trump's scheme to withhold funds from Ukraine in exchange for political dirt, which led to his impeachment. It was a fascinating interview. It was about 45 minutes. And, you know, one of the biggest revelations to come out of that interview is that it really was Lev Parnas who was the person behind getting Donald Trump to flip his political endorsement from Adam Putnam, who was Adam was the agriculture secretary of the state of Florida. I always think of him as the sugar daddy because he was this big. Daddy. Well, he's the sugar daddy because he's getting a lot of money from Big Sugar. He was like the big sugar candidate, kind of like Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
And so he was like the sugar daddy. He had all this money. He'd been in office for 8 years statewide. And here's this little known congressman whose claim to fame is that he goes on Fox and says stuff for Trump. And all of a sudden, Trump goes out and endorses him. It was kind of like a big deal at the time. And it helped flip the primary. It changed the momentum. And, you know, Ron DeSantis became the nominee. And then by 35,000 votes, he wound up, becoming governor of Florida, 33,000 votes. You know, that was a big revelation that he was really that. And, I run a couple of news websites, OccupyDemocrats.com and WashingtonPress.com. They're both national political news websites in the Occupy Democrats family. And so when I asked my editor to publish the story, and I gave it the title "Great Expectations," which, it just sounds good, right? Great expectations. Lev had great expectations for, DeSantis at the time. But like, it's actually like a novel, and, it's like this novel about this young man who has a benefactor that is unknown, like an anonymous benefactor. And then the anonymous benefactor helps him in all these phases of life and eventually reveals himself to be a criminal. Right? Right. And he's like, but when I was on the run, you were a little boy, you helped me out. So I quietly helped you. Right? And so we did the interview in August, and then Lev went on trial in October and he lost. And so it's just kind of like this, like, wow, how like classic, right? Like this story, like they call them the classics, these books, for like a reason, but like to actually be sitting there like next to it, like seeing it happen in real life, it's a crazy feeling as a journalist, as a person, when you're sitting there like watching the news. I mean, Rachel Maddow won some sort of like big prize for interviewing Lev Parnas, and I'm like, We got a better interview.
Wherever or whenever, it's Big Victory.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
The Big Victories Podcast, hosted by Big Vic, with co-hosts Mev the Renegade and Jeremy St. Louis.
Every morning that I wake up, say
Well, and the thing too, I think the thing that we learned is just throughout that presidency, and I speak as a Canadian. Obviously, I'm not an American, so I'm speaking obviously from a different viewpoint. But I think one of the things that we learned about American politics during that particular presidency is that, and I don't know if it's just, if it was something that was just a part of that particular presidency, or if it's something that's just kind of happened behind the scenes for a number of different presidents, but it was just got the light shone onto it in this particular case. But I mean, one of the things that we've discovered, certainly during the Trump presidency, and as politics has, I don't want to say degraded, because I still believe in democracy, but obviously
It took a hit.
we're going down a very dangerous path, and the political landscape now is as divided as it's ever been. So, Grant, when you look at the political landscape now, and you look at what Trump did before, and now you look at him, he looks like he's going to try it again. He looks like he's going to maybe try to run again. DeSantis, there's talk of him even maybe throwing his hat in there to try and run for the nomination for the Republicans. I mean,
He's been running for a long time. He's been running for that nomination since last year.
Which, I mean,
DeSantis. He didn't throw his hat in any rings, but that's how these things work.
To be,
he's running to be the president with all this crazy stuff they're passing in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and to be completely editorial, you should be frightened at that very prospect. But when you look at the political landscape now, Grant, I mean, where's the hope?
Where's the hope? That's a great question. So, I mean, the hope is that, first of all, no matter what happens for the next 2 years, you have a good person in the White House controlling the presidency, controlling, the vast power of the federal government for good. And that's a big deal. As we've all seen, one person makes a hell of a difference. People thought, I got a personal feeling about Hillary Clinton. But I personally had a feeling like I wanted to keep my health insurance, and I lost it because Donald Trump was sitting in his office 1,000 miles away from where I'm sitting and signed a few pieces of paper and destroyed the healthcare market as we knew it at the time, and premiums doubled, right? The hope is that Democrats have been through a lot of wars, and they're going to be ready for this election, whether people think so or not. The Republicans have said that they want to raise taxes on everybody except the rich people. They're not kidding. Believe them. Republicans have said they want to pass a law that repeals the Affordable Care Act. And the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, it's not just an insurance law. It covers like everything. It governs everything. You take that law away, and it's like the healthcare system just won't even function. I mean, people are going to be locked out of hospitals because the hospital won't be able to take you in.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, well, we used to do this with this type of patient and that with that type of. I mean, it's inconceivable. And if you want to see like the bad effect of these bad laws that get passed, and you want to see what happens when you have like government by feelings, look at the UK. The UK used to be like the most rational, like everything was so rational and sharp and, people oriented, individual oriented. Like my friend, one of my good friends he's from there. He says, the thing that I don't like about American sports is that when a football team wins the Super Bowl, the first person to hold up the trophy is the owner.
Right.
Right. But in Europe, it's like, no, it's the players, man. It's the players' trophy.
Yeah.
And it's the fans' team, and the owner is the custodian of it. Right. And so, when you just that one bad person can make so much difference. So the hope is that one bad person isn't anywhere near the actual power they had. And all they're doing is just trying to bask in the dim glow of the receding hold on that power. And then there's something technical that's happening that's not very well known. And I'm gonna share it exclusively with the Big Victories podcast.
Journalism. Here we go. Journalism.
Hey, listen, hold on. Let me break news. Big breaking news. You know I break news. Go ahead.
So 10, 12 years ago, Republicans did this incredible political strategic maneuver to change all the maps so that they could win all the time.
Congressional maps?
Congressional maps. And so Democrats fought all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats, I'm here to say, won the redistricting fight this year and last year for all of the elections going to be held this year. They've won it.
So there's a good chance midterm we don't get killed.
Well, I'm not going to say kill it, but I'm going to say, like, whatever people thought, it's going to like the conventional wisdom, it could get turned on its head because Republicans were kind of counting on extending their wins from 10 years ago in a bunch of key states. And instead, these maps, now that they're up for discussion and debate, are getting overturned in the courts over and over. And just a couple of years ago, it looked really grim. The Supreme Court said, hey, if you want to make your map based on Democrat and Republican, go for it. Let the states deal with this. Right? And the Supreme Court was like, we out. Well, they also said, let the states deal with this. And everybody was like this. And I said, when I looked at that, I said, this is going to be really big. And now it's happened. So it's not as bad as it looks in the congressional map, but it's going to be a rough ride in the next 2 years unless Democrats really, really pull some incredible stuff off in different states all over the country. And it's going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy map. I'll tell you that.
One of my favorite movies of all time is The American President. And one of the lines in there that always sticks out to me is, you know, a description of the Republican Party by Michael Douglas, who was the president at the time. He says, you know, talking about Richard Dreyfuss's character, who was, you know, that character that was just not a good person. And one of the things that he said, you know what, this guy, he's going to tell you what's wrong, and he's going to tell you who you need to blame for it. And it seems like that's exactly what's been going on. The Democrats are trying to fix a lot of the things that happened under the Trump presidency and try to input their own, you know, their own platform material as well. But now you have the Republicans. I mean, I saw a video this week, some guy questioning people, and there were Trump supporters saying they wish that Putin was the president. I mean, I can't even, but one of the big criticisms of the Democrats, though, Grant, and this is something I've heard over and over again for years, okay, is that the Republicans are the Republicans. They're the Republicans, but one of the things that they are is that they're always united with one another. They always go in the same direction. Whereas the Democrats, you always hear that the Democrats can't get out of their own way. They fight themselves. Like they if they came together and actually just stood together. And we saw it with Joe Manchin. I mean, the whole, you know, that whole particular, you know, set of circumstances. The Democrats get into their own way. So how do you, Grant, like, how do you look at the Democrats and say, how do we not get into our own way?
That's a great question. And I think there's a lot of different moving parts to that answer. And I'll tell you this. There's someone who passed away yesterday at the age of 57 actually day before, but we just found out yesterday.
In the bike accident.
From a bicycle accident. Yeah. His name was Eric Baylor.
Yes.
And he's a phenomenal journalism. He wrote this blog called Press Run.
Yeah.
But before that, he was at Media Matters for America, at Salon. And all he does is press criticism. And the thing is that Republicans fight themselves just as much as Democrats. Okay? The reason why the ACA is still around is because John McCain said, I'm not going to go along with this. And he wasn't the only one, right? It took more than a 50-50 vote. So there are other Republicans that voted against that idea too. The difference is the Democrats got a couple of really big bills passed, and they have a bunch more smaller ones too. But yeah, the public perception there, it's driven by a media narrative. The media believes it. You repeated it. People don't understand that, a lot of things are chicken and egg, but public opinion is deeply influenced by what they see online, on TV, on media, on the Big Victory podcast, only on the Big Victory podcast.
Thank you. Keep saying that.
So, it's like, but repetition matters too. And so, there was a great study that came out just last week or maybe it was this. I think it was earlier this week. And what they did was they put Donald Trump into a pro-vaccine ad,
Oh God.
and they found that it changed the people who viewed it, who were anti-vaccine, became more pro-vaccine when they saw Donald Trump saying, "Get a vaccine." Similar, there was another study that came out. If they paid people $1,000 a month to watch CNN instead, not watch Fox News, within a few days they'd start questioning the things they saw at Fox News. By the end of the 30 days, they'd have a very different opinion of things because they're not being shown propaganda that's just being written to prove some point. That's like, we've got a narrative we're trying to sell here. Let's find the story that fits it and sell it.
Grant.
And so all those narratives are important. How are Democrats going to overcome the existence of Republicans? I'm going to tell you my recipe, and it ain't complicated. Democrats need to have their own medias, their own websites, their own newses, their own television. Because people
Their own
say,
Fox
the
News.
liberal media.
Oh Jesus.
The
I
liberal
thought that was
media.
NBC.
No. They say, the liberal media. I'm like, man, when you find the liberal media that's not me, you let me know, because I don't think they exist.
Well, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't. The
it's
journalism does not, true journalism does not go one way or the other. True journalism simply is a.
Hold on. I like this. I'm sitting
you
back
want
and listening to
no,
journalists.
No, that's not true.
I'm sitting back listening to journalists. Go ahead. Fight it out.
No, I'm saying that in theory, okay, in theory, obviously not in practice. There are a lot of issues with journalism today. But in theory, journalism is not biased. Journalism is supposed to be a presentation of the truth and providing a voice for both sides to have a say, and then leave it to the viewer, leave it to the reader, leave it to the listener to come to their own conclusion. That's what it's supposed to be.
So here's the thing, though. That's how it was for a long time in a certain way.
That's how it is in Canada, by the way.
All right, you want to slide Canada in there.
Oh, you got to slide Canada.
I'm saying the CBC, which is the government-run network. A lot of people say it's liberal-centric, but for journalists, it's one of the places where journalists want to go because you get to actually do journalism there.
So I'm gonna run you back to the Walmart thing for a second, and I'm gonna ask you a question, okay? And now I'm gonna tell you, under your model, I would have to tell you both sides of this story, okay, and let the reader decide who is correct and who is incorrect. This is the question that decided a 1-year-long court case, and the first 2 years of the battle, it ended with that court case, okay? The question is, what is the total of 4 plus 1?
5.
Vic, you got an answer?
Hey, whatever the right answer is, that's what I pick. So if it's 5, it's 5. Shit.
I asked my daughter the same question. She's 4 this weekend. She's 4 years old. And she said 5. And I said, she's overqualified to work at the city of Miami now. Because the city of Miami.
Hey, stop talking about the mayor like that, okay? He's a good guy.
No, but Grant, one of the things.
But here's the thing. Hold on. Let me finish the story.
Okay.
So we go to court, and I say, this is illegal because the code says you must have a total of 3 loading berths. And they had 4 on the ground floor and 1 on the upstairs. And they went in and argued, well, in our opinion, in our interpretation of this zoning code, the word total means minimum.
What?
So the example I always like to give is, would you like to have a total of $10 in your bank account? What do you say, Vic?
Hell no.
I mean, after you're done paying for the podcast, that's all that's left, right?
I thought, what happened to the discount?
But if a total meant minimum, would you like to have a total of $10 in your bank account?
Or a minimum.
A minimum.
Minimum of $10.
Yeah, but not total.
What does that mean?
Man, listen. Give me all the money I can.
We're going to live, right?
Yeah, we're going to live. or it look like you in Tuxie right now, so we could there too.
Okay. So anyways, we all went all the way to court, and the judges were like, yeah, of course, this is, total means total. And then the next year we were in court and the judges laughed at them. Like, they actually laughed. I have a video of judges laughing at the city. But if you're a journalist, right, should you report that the city maintains that the word total means minimum and 4 + 1 = 3? But the people say that 4 + 1, a total of that should equal 5.
No, it's based on what the city believes, but then what the law or what the statute or what the judge actually says is the true.
No, but the law says total of 3. Would you report when the city says total of 3 means 4 + 1?
No, I would do exactly
Would
what
you say
you said.
that's how it is?
No, I would say exactly what you says. The law says that the total is 3.
So
they
it's 3.
contend that it's 4 + 1, which judges laughed at and said it's actually.
But judges only laughed at it 2 years later.
Right.
And see, that's kind of my point. The whole idea of should media be biased, this, that, the other. It's like, look, if the media is transparent and they're honest about the facts, that's what we need. Because right now what we have is they're not transparent about their biases, and they present biased facts, and then or they present biased people and say, well, we're neutral and we're presenting this biased person. We're not going to tell you about their bias, right? And you're like, so now this person can go on and say, now imagine you take somebody that's authoritative. Say you take a city official. You can say, hey, city official, do you say that? The city official says, absolutely, no doubt, this city's interpretation of 4 + 1 is 3. Do you print it and tell everybody that's how it is? Because people give deference to the government, right?
This is why I do
do you
sports.
take the side?
Yeah, it's too complicated.
But I'm saying it's not complicated.
It's easy. It's math. Like, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. This is
it is, but not in the media because of what Jeremy said.
Okay, hang on.
We'll be right back with the Big Victories podcast.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
We're back with the Big Victories podcast. Here's your host, Big Vic, for real, with co-hosts Mev the Renegade and Jeremy St. Louis.
Okay, hang on. So in bias is inherent. It's a human. That's human.
That's right. Everybody's got a bias.
Everybody has a bias. The true journalist, the true journalism is the training of removing that bias in order to present information that is factual from 2 different angles or 3 or 4, and then let the viewer, listener, reader decide. In theory, right? That's the problem. This is why I'm doing my master's in journalism, because I want to teach journalism, because it's what you said, Grant. You're not wrong. Bias is there because because people have not been properly trained to omit bias from their reporting.
But like here's the thing, right? CBS recently hired the former Trump chief of staff,
Yes.
Mick Mulvaney.
Yes.
And there's a huge outroar.
Yes.
Okay. Me included. And it's
Why?
It's like you have this person who obstructed Congress and was one of the most partisan people in all of Congress. And now you're presenting him as this neutral commentator on the news.
No. He's not being presented as a neutral commentator. He's being presented as another side contributor.
No. He's a contributor. There was no other side. They brought him in to comment, what do you think about this budget? And his political views are very clear.
Right, but that's where he's
going
to.
You're an expert.
But that's where he's going to speak from.
Management and budget.
But that's where he's going to speak from.
But they're not bringing in somebody to say, well, this is the different side. That's not what they're doing on CBS News. They didn't say, we're going to pay some liberal guy who has a different opinion of it and let them debate.
So, Grant, I have a question for you. I got a question for both of you guys. Me being non-political.
And he's not an opinion contributor. He's supposed to be an analyst An analyst is a news
This is what I'm about to
person.
ask you.
No,
Let me
I
ask you a
agree.
question.
I agree.
Let me
I
ask a
agree.
question. This is what I'm about to ask you guys. You, including Jeremy. Me being a non-political guy, right? Right now, if I want to learn something about the government, what's happening on today's society and in the world, what stations should I turn on to, or who should I be listening to that's going to give me an honest opinion about what's happening today in the world? I want both of you guys to answer that question for me.
Okay. In English, NPR is usually pretty good if you're looking for like, down the middle. In Spanish, I like Roberto Tejera and Juan Camilo on Actualidad Radio, which is local here in Miami, but a lot of people listen to it all over. It's just tough to say. Like, it's just pick and choose, man. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's just no one perfect place that you can go to these days. NBC News is usually pretty good. I'd say that they're one of the better ones. But it's tough. It's tough. There's
What about
not a
you,
lot
Jeremy?
of
What'd you say,
amazing
Jeremy?
news outlets out there right now. The Washington Post also, I'm sorry. The Washington Post is like my standard
I was
go-to.
going to say the Washington Post or the New York Times.
I wouldn't say the New York Times anymore.
I wouldn't say that. I would listen to The Daily, Up First on NPR, or Axios Today. Okay, those are short little pods, 15, 20 minutes we're talking about, that can keep you up to date. I would watch, social media-wise, Jessica Yellen, who does News Not Noise, where she basically just tries to present things in layman's terms, which I think it's something that is more required. From an actual newscast standpoint, I like Lester Holt. I like what NBC News is doing, but CBS is the standard. CBS News is the gold standard right now for news in this country. And so Nora O'Donnell and CBS News, and I, full disclaimer, I work for CBS, so maybe some of my bias is showing, but I mean, for me, it's CBS and then NBC. I'm a big fan of Lester and what NBC does as well. But those are the sources that I go to.
So the second part of this question, right? What are some of the bills that you think that's been passed in the last year? Both of you guys can answer the question. That's actually going to change the creed of America. What I mean by the creed of America, I see some of these bills that passed. It doesn't reflect America. You know what I mean? You get a senator,
but it does reflect America because people are allowing it to be passed. So it actually does reflect a portion of America. People are saying these bills don't reflect America, but they're not being passed in a vacuum. They're being passed.
Actually, the biggest bill to pass, I mean, not size-wise, but of importance, is the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and that passed with 69 votes in the Senate. I mean, this is something I did a lot of, like coverage on, and the Brent Spence Bridge is a great example. Okay, it's the bridge that connects Cincinnati to Kentucky.
Yeah,
right. And this bridge is like the choke point of all choke points. It's like always packed. It's old as hell. And they've been trying for 20 years to replace it. And they're like, if this bill pays for this bridge, this is going to be the biggest deal ever. And it's like, the biggest problem that we've had is that you just had this political strategy of do absolutely nothing, no matter what, no matter how bad things are. And you had one party that really stuck to it in a way that was unbelievably horrible, and it lasted for 6 years. And then when the presidency flipped, you had people come in who wanted to literally strip away the underpinnings of our healthcare system. I mean, Brexit is so bad in the UK, I mentioned it. It's like the shelves are empty, so they're putting up cardboard boxes. Everything is understaffed because they restricted immigration in the way that all the hardliners want. They did everything. Every right-wing fantasy that they had in that country got put into law, and it's all falling apart, and people are miserable about it. And they tried to do that here, and even with a full majority in the House, Senate, and the presidency, even the Republicans couldn't find enough people that were willing to destroy America for their insane, ideological, not reality-based vision of how to do things, right? This bipartisan infrastructure bill reflects a departure from we're going to fail this person as much as possible. We're going to fail the country to help our political party. But it's a very short departure. We need to see more of it, and that's the big problem. That's the gridlock. So that bill, I think, is the most important one because it's going to put so many people to work for a whole decade. It's the biggest investment into mass transit in American history. Mm. And here's the one thing that, to me, like I was following for years, and when I found out this was in that bill, it really made me happy. Y'all ever hear of Mother Jones?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mother Jones magazine, okay?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I used to be a big fan of it, not so much anymore. But like Kevin Drum, who is one of the long times there, has always been a favorite. He's a great guy. And he wrote an amazing article and turned it into a series there. It's called Lead, the Real Criminal Element. And it's like people didn't realize like lead poisoning in water makes people crazy and angry, right? Mm-hmm. And I read this like in 2012 and I was like, wow, this is a big revelation. And so this water bill gives like billions of dollars to take lead out of American drinking water. Do you know how much violence that's going to reduce? Especially like in inner city communities that are affected more. I've been to West Baltimore. You go to West Baltimore.
Not West Kendall, where Alex Rodriguez said the hood.
Oh! Oh, I grew up in that hood that Alex Rodriguez grew up in. Alex Rodriguez grew up in Kendale Lakes. You ever hear of a place called Lakes that's so bad? Like, dude, he grew up right next to the U-Pick Strawberry and the Don Carters. We were always there as kids. That was like where you'd go. See, that's no hood. West Baltimore is the hood. And anytime you go to a water fountain there, it's covered up with tape because they got lead in the service lines.
So, I mean, for me, obviously these anti-abortion bills that are being passed, the challenge is that it's coming to Roe v. Wade, that's going to go to the Supreme Court, and then critical race theory that is being, bastardized and then taken out of... Can you
explain to people what critical race theory is? Because a lot of people don't understand what it is.
Well, critical race theory, I mean, in short...
Hold on, let me explain it. It's a three-word phrase that you can make into a good acronym, put it on a bumper sticker, and say, y'all want to be racist, but not feel you're racist? We'll talk about this. Because critical race theory it's a legal theory that is basically to say that there was a second Jim Crow set up in this country and it was the drug war. And that's no off-base legal theory. Even Richard Nixon's own people admitted later in life that the drug war was about race. And I could go on,
when they dropped crack only in the black neighborhood?
Yeah. But it's like, dude, there's two books. One, it's called The New Jim Crow by I think it's Rachel Alexander, Michelle Alexander, I think. And then there's another one, which I'm not going to remember the name of the author, but it's Slavery by Another Name. And it's all about how after slavery, the sheriff system with the work gangs replaced slavery in America. And then the same thing happened with the drug war. That's why we're all talking about legalizing it, because it's like they made this crazy war against drugs just to criminalize people and do it selectively. And it's bad. It's not good.
One of the things that, I mean, obviously challenges to, the ACA. I get into discussions all the time with people who they call me a socialist because I'm from Canada, Canada, socialist country with your socialized medicine and stuff like that.
That's just because you have a SIN number, dude.
It's true.
SIN number.
It's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, social insurance number. But
he's a sinner. He's a sinner, a Canadian. I blame Canada.
I get that meme like 50 times a week.
Yeah.
But speaking as someone who has had socialized medicine, who has had healthcare, that is part of being a resident and a person of your country, and then coming to a country where healthcare is a business, not a right, I can tell you that once you have healthcare, once you have it, and it's not going to bankrupt you if you get sick, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg every month in order to just have it, you will wonder why you did not get it sooner. In Canada, the guy who brought in universal health care was a member of the New Democratic Party. He was vilified. He was like, everybody was crazy because he was doing this and what the hell. And now he's considered one of the greatest Canadians ever because of the fact that he did it. Now, having said that, there are issues within the Canadian healthcare system. There's tiering, there's things that are going on that need to be fixed. But for Americans, I think that healthcare needs to become, Grant, to your point, less of a business and more of something that everybody should have. And I think that I honestly, I hate to say this. But with the political climate that this country is currently in, you almost need something that's going to jolt everybody back to zero. Do you know what I mean? Like you almost need something to happen that's going to jolt everybody back to zero, kind of come to their senses and be like, okay, we need to be moving all together in this particular direction because the way that things are going right now, I mean, I don't know.
I thought Donald Trump did that.
I don't know if there's ever going to be a situation where we're going to be able to move together in one direction because it's not getting better. It's getting worse.
So, I think it's a great idea. And I think that we had something like that happen, 21 years ago, which was 9/11. And that didn't work out so good, did it? The big jolts that bring people together actually are not that great. I mean, like we don't want to bring together around bad ideas, but we've done that. And worse, there's a great book that I read called The Shock Doctrine. And I highly recommend it. It's all about how, people were like administering shocks to economies by making big changes in national policies in all these countries around the world and how it actually hurt those countries. And so we've been through a lot of shocks. I think we've been through a lot of shocks that should jolt anybody. I mean, the Capitol being overrun, our government completely failing in a pandemic, complete fail.
Yeah, Grant, full credit to you, man. You're absolutely right. I mean, you would have thought that. I mean, and I thought when I watched January 6th, I thought, okay, this is it. People are
right. That's what I thought. I thought, okay, this is insane.
Yeah, this is it.
Good. What's it called? The good people are going to look at this and say, like, no more. This
even
is
the
people, break away.
Even the people who were with Trump be jolted enough to, look at their conscience and go, Jesus Christ, we cannot have this. This guy caused this to happen. We can't have this. This guy, I thought, this is the end of it. This is the end of him. That's it. It's out. Trump's gone. Like he's going to be gone and that's it. We're not going to, that's done. It's done. And it didn't go that way. It didn't go that way. And now I'm sitting here, where you get the January 6th, the trials and stuff, and you're just like, what?
You're listening to the Big Victories podcast.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
Welcome back to the Big Victory podcast for real.
I have a question for y'all about Russia. I think y'all guys probably the best to answer this for me. What the heck happened in the 2016 election? What was it? What election Trump was in again?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you saw the headlines a couple weeks ago where Russian state television said we want Trump, our partner Trump, back in office.
Yeah.
But that's a great question to ask, and I have like about 100 hours worth of answers.
Unless you're gonna let me get the podcast for free, hell no.
I mean, look, man. Let's just dial it all back a little bit, right? So there's a war going on in Ukraine.
It's not
This
a
is
war.
obviously a big concern.
It's not a war.
What is it?
It's an invasion.
Okay, invasion. Let's get
It's
into
an invasion.
Yeah, it is an invasion, right?
I think
It
that
is
I
an
think that
invasion.
that is and this is I mean I criticize my own people, right?
Well, it's Russia
not a
through
war.
a war.
It's not
Yeah.
a war. It's an invasion that has resulted in an armed conflict with a people trying to defend their sovereign right to exist.
Well, the thing is, though, that invasion started 8 years ago,
Crimea.
right?
Yeah.
And it really started earlier than that. And so, like that gives us a good basis to kind of say, like, what's going on here, what's going on there, right? But far before that, like, Russia tried to politically invade Ukraine by sending in some slick liars, giving them unlimited money, nice suits, and those people then politically conquested Ukraine. They got a kleptomaniac into office, and he built himself a presidential palace that was like something Saddam Hussein might have had, right? And then that didn't work out, and the people kicked that person out. And so, in response, well, Putin decided to take it another level. He invaded eastern Ukraine. He seized Crimea, and then he sent the people that tried to politically conquered Ukraine to come back to America, where they were from, and politically conquer America.
Okay.
It worked. It worked like a charm. Donald Trump hired the exact same person who helped the Ukrainian kleptomaniac get into office to help his campaign at the most critical time.
Let me ask you this, Grant. Do you think, kind of getting back to where we're at now, do you think that enough of the people, because Trump got in on that whole, the Democrats have been ignoring you. They're only about the rich. They don't care about middle America. All they care about are the
crazy
cities.
Town talk. It's just
Right?
crazy
Okay,
talk.
okay.
But they repeat it a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. So Trump got in on that I'm going to look after the little guy. I'm the guy who's going to take care of you in your small towns. I'm going to bring coal back. I'm going to bring industry back to middle America. Do you think that middle America, that those people now have seen enough to know that was all bullshit and are not going to believe that if it comes to round two? Or do you think that there is still that middle America that believes that Biden is not for them, the Democrats are not for them, the Democrats are not doing anything for them, that it is the Republicans that are going to be the ones to do something for them, and Trump?
So, I'm gonna throw this back on Big Vic by asking him a question. Vic,
Yes,
can
sir.
you hustle a hustler?
Hell no.
Right?
Hell no.
What happens?
Go ahead.
But what happens to somebody who's been hustled? Do they walk around and say, "I just got hustled"?
Hell no. They keep going along with it because they're embarrassed.
Right. And then what happens when they get hustled and you say, "You just got hustled"? What do they say?
No, I didn't.
Exactly. No, I didn't. Why? Well, you just got robbed. Look, you got less money.
Yeah. But you know something that to answer.
But that's my point.
No,
it's
but-
like to say, like, okay, well, we got one pulled over on you. Right?
Right. Okay. So there's a video that's circulating online right now. I saw it on social media yesterday. There's a guy, the Liars Project or something like that. It's called. I think.
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah, the Good Liars.
Yeah, the Good Liars, and they did an interview with two Trump people, and the guy said, "Well, what do you think about January 6th?" And he says, "Well, that was all Antifa." And the guy says, "Well, wait a minute, Antifa."
They did a movie, so I've seen
Antifa's
this,
Biden, right? And well, they're not okay, but Biden, like Antifa, they turned it around on the Trump supporters who were saying that it was Antifa that were rioting against the government. But he's like, wait, if they're with Biden, their guy got in.
So
why would they be Why would they be doing that? And these people were like,
we don't know. They did. They did it.
Yeah,
great point.
but to what you just said, right? You realize that you got hustled. I actually said, like, here's the you could see the moment when a dummy realizes that they're actually a dummy. You know what I mean? Like, it's that realization when you can actually.
No, you see that goes against
absolutely
all of science.
does. Absolutely, it does.
No,
Absolutely,
that goes against science. See, there was one of the things that people talked about a lot over the last 5 years, and I was talking about it way before that. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You ever hear of that?
What is the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Okay, this is going to blow your mind, and I might have to.
I hope it don't blow my mind.
I might have to show you a picture to go with this on the screen. It's going to be really ugly, but the Dunning-Kruger effect actually won a Nobel Prize in like sociology or whatever its field is. And basically, you ever meet somebody who only knows one thing, but they're like grossly overconfident?
You're in Miami. Don't ask that question again.
So they did this study, and what they found was that when people know one thing, they become incredibly confident, okay? But when they know more than one thing, they grow less confident in what they know. And when they become, before they become an expert, when they actually study a lot, they become a lot less confident.
Why is that?
And then it's just psychology. And then when you become an expert, a true expert is not 100% confident in anything because they understand that uncertainty exists. It basically looks like a crooked smile. And so the whole thing is that, you know, people that aren't really like super like studied and going to get their masters to teach journalism and all these awesome things, like they may not be studying current affairs that much, right? And so the politicians know this, and so this is how the bad ones take advantage of it in a bad way. They'll say, well, Democrats don't care about you. Now, what is the fact behind that? Not much. It's just telling you a feeling, right? It's just all about feelings. But you repeat it a lot, and it can become the one thing that people remember, right? And if you're a journalist, right, you're trying to be like both sides. I'm so neutral. I'm going to say Democrats think this, or, you know, everybody thinks Democrats are heartless and don't care. Even that framing actually promotes these false narratives. Asking about the false narrative by promoting the falsity promotes the falsity regardless of what I say.
Right.
You know? And so it's like, it's tough because the people that are out there manipulating people, psychological manipulation, like they just want to teach people one thing really, really well, whatever that one thing is. It's usually a feel, not a fact. And you can't evaluate facts with feelings. I mean, a little bit, but it's like, it's tough for people to know what they lost.
Well, and it's you know, it's that old saying, right? A lie told 1,000 times becomes a truth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it does.
Right. So
it does. Yeah.
And Trump was famous for that. I mean, that was his whole thing. He told a lie as much as he could because he knew that his base would believe that it's the truth, right? That Putin's a good guy. That Putin's a good guy.
He's not the first guy. That's the thing. He's a symptom. Okay, he's a symptom.
Damn, you call a man a symptom.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's a symptom of a broader disease, which is that, you know, you have two parties out there, right? One that's just very human. It ain't so organized. It's got a lot of differing ideas. It's just trying to make it by in the best way possible. Sometimes they change their mind. Sometimes they don't like who their neighbor is. And like all these human emotions play out. And then you have this relentless press that needs to get stories based on, you know, some specific thing. The president screwed this up. The president said something funny. The president this. And so like with Trump, he's like, haha, I'm going to be your clown. And you're not going to notice all the bad things that are happening behind me. But with Democrats, you know, it's just like, they're like, well, I'm trying. Won't you listen to me? No, that unfortunately ain't how it works in this world.
Well, Grant, we appreciate you joining the show today, man. We're coming to the end of the show. The knowledge you and Jeremy have passed along,
it's more Grant's knowledge. Grant, you're doing some really good stuff, and tell us the websites again, please.
Oh yeah, so you can go to grantstern.com.
Okay,
and that's where you can find all of my stuff in one place. I'm on the Dworkin Report podcast. I'm a producer there. I run OccupyDemocrats.com and WashingtonPress.com. TheSternFacts.com is my old website. The new website based on that, there's a little, you know, I kind of stopped and started there, but you can go to grantstern.substack.com, grantstern.substack.com. You see, if I keep repeating it, people
Yeah,
want it
yeah.
there one day.
Yeah.
That's my
He think we
newsletter.
all fools. He keep repeating it, but he didn't say Big Victory one time though. But
I
Grant
said it a couple of times. No, but Grant, appreciate you coming on and sharing the knowledge with us, and you know,
this is
obviously giving us more insight, and I mean, I would encourage, you know, people that are watching this to, you know, check out some of the sources we talked about throughout the podcast, and form your own opinion. Don't let us, you know, set your opinion for you. Form your own opinion yourself by you know, reading and educating yourself with the resources that are out there. Some really good resources, like Grant's stuff as well. So Grant, good to have you on the podcast, man. Thanks for joining us.
thank you for joining
Thanks,
Big
guys.
Victory. See you later, Grant.
Cheers.
Push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will get him head top, lift up in the push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will get him head top, lift up in the